Hi, this is Disability Saves the World with Ph.D. Shinuda. I am Ph.D. Shinuda. This podcast brings you insights from leading experts in disability and math studies from around the world. You'll hear about the research and work of disabled artists, scholars, activists, and our allies. You'll also get some insight into their lives, their favorite non-DS activities, their hobbies, and the adventures they've taken. Most importantly, you'll hear how they think disability can save the world. My name again is Ph.D. Shinuda, he, him pronouns. I have a Ph.D. in public health sciences. I am a postdoc in London in the UK, and I identify as a fat, disabled cis man of color. If you don't know me, hopefully you'll get to know me a little bit more over the course of the next few episodes. On today's show, we are joined by Anna Chowaniec. Anna is a PhD candidate at the Institute of Ethnology and Cultural Anthropology at the University of Warsaw in Poland. She recently completed a 3-month research visit to London, UK, to conduct research, participate in seminars, and overall learn from some of the leading experts in her field. It's also where we met. I am so excited to speak with her about her research.
Diversity is something that makes people more aware of others.
And her life outside of academia.
He was playing on a guitar and singing blues for us.
And ask her, of course, how she thinks disability can save the world. Hi, Anna. How you doing?
Hi, good. Thank you.
Thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's great to have you here. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you internationally this time.
Yeah, I'm so excited as well. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Sorry?
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'm really glad to have you on. We are both still in quarantine, having just traveled internationally less than 2 weeks ago. So what better way to spend our time than talking about, our research, disability, and kind of catching up?
So it's like an occasion just to speak to other person, which is great, lately.
Absolutely. It's just wonderful to talk to another person. So let's start with segment 1. Segment 1 is one I call Inside the Project, the Research, the Work, the Art. And I'd like you to tell me a little bit about your project. So we'll start off by asking maybe a question about why disability studies? Why did you get involved in that area or that discipline?
Sure. So the thing is, I didn't start my project as a disability studies project. It became obvious at some point that it's something that I should pursue, something that's a part of my research. So it started with my master's, because I was doing research about the families, or more specifically, mothers of children with Down syndrome, in Poland. And when I finished my master's, I applied because they were looking for a researcher in a bigger project, which was about the rare disorders in Poland. So I started working there as an anthropologist. And after, let's say, 2 or 3 interviews I've done with my participants, it became so obvious that the question of disability is one that I should follow. It's something that's one of the most important elements in those people's lives.
Right.
So that's how it happened. It didn't start that way, but it ended up this way.
And so when you started researching disability, what were the kind of first things that you, what's the first thing, did you go to the library and did you put disability, or did you go to speak to somebody, or how did you get to disability studies?
Great question. It started when I was doing my master's, of course. And funny enough, it started with special education. So I was looking for literature about the special education, the understanding of disability. Right. And I was so disappointed with
Mm,
everything I found, it didn't answer any of my questions. So I knew it's not, like I shouldn't follow this. And I started looking more into social sciences understanding of disability, which was much more eye-opening.
right.
And actually, because the disabilities that I encounter now in my fieldwork are so specific that I had to follow very particular ways of understanding what the disability is. Which means that, for example, most of the people that I was doing research with, they have invisible disability, which of course is something very much different than, let's say, uh, having impaired mobility or something like this. So
Right.
I had
Yeah.
to try to follow something else. I tried to find the answers. I'm not yet satisfied, let's say,
Yeah,
but
because
maybe
you're also dealing with rare disorders, right? You were saying
yes,
dealing with people who have, like, your project is around people who have very specific, like, food
yeah,
allergies, or very specific, or sorry, rare disorders that require a specific diet, a
yes,
specific.
yes.
So tell us a little bit about that project and how disability studies interacts with that.
Yeah, so the groups that I'm doing research with are groups of Polish patients with two metabolic disorders, so with
Right,
LCAT and PKU. Um, and both of those disorders are at the errors of metabolism, which means that the things that you get from the food cannot be properly um, uh, your body cannot properly produce substances from the food. So in LCAT, that's energy. So you cannot produce energy from fats. And in the case of PKU, you cannot produce some proteins from the proteins in your food.
mm,
So in both of those cases, if you do not follow very restrictive diet, so either very high in calories in case of LCAT, or without the proteins in the case of PKU, you can either die or become um, very much intellectually disabled with Parkinson's and other neurological problems in the PKU.
right.
So if you do not follow the diet, which is the only treatment that works for the Polish patients for many different reasons, but it's the only thing that works. If you do not follow the diet, you can either die or become severely disabled.
Right.
So the problem is that because the treatment is the diet, and those people or those children, the families, they air quotes look normal.
Right.
It's not visible. They are not treated as people with any kind of disability.
Mm,
It's not recognized as disability. It's more like a potential of disability. The problem is that their caregivers, so usually mothers, they have to follow the requirements of the diet. So they have to make every meal, count calories, count proteins, and everything. It's like the full-time job, and
right.
they're not getting paid
And
because
so
they, yeah.
so there's issues around, like who, sorry, I guess there's issues around the in terms of, like, getting funding in order to kind of
Yeah.
stay at home full time, in order to care for their young children, that doesn't actually get recognized by the state.
Yes, exactly. So if those children were recognized as having a disability, then it would be much less of a problem because
Right.
there is welfare, there are funds for caregivers, but then the person who you're caring for has to be recognized as having a disability. And it's really hard to, prove to the system that my child is having a disability because it's not showing, it's some of the doctors that I've interviewed, they say like it's only a diet, which is partially true. It's just it's not seen in the way that it's helpful for anyone.
Yeah. So, have they done anything, like have the parents done anything in particular to um try to get their kids recognized as having a disability? Have there any been like interesting stories or interesting methods that they've used?
Oh, sure, because um, most of those parents, uh, in case of ELCAT, I know almost every single patient's parent is on the Facebook group um, for this group of patients. So what is happening if one of the families is having problem with getting their benefits? Other parents are helping them. So, for example, they're sending them their documentation, everything, just to prove that you know their child got the benefits. So this child is the same, should you know should have the same support and everything. So it's more like a grassroots movement. So they
That's
cannot do
wonderful.
anything on the higher level. It's really hard.
Yeah.
There are plans to change it, although no one really knows if those changes are going to be for good, or are
Of course.
those going to be a bad changes. No one knows.
Yeah.
So for now, it's more like a grassroots movement to like to help each other, sending documents, sending their own paperwork for those other parents to use in front of a court, let's say.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so that's what's been happening. The problem is that those welfare committees, they're like different in different cities. There are hundreds of them, if not thousands, in Poland. So every single committee can make their own choice. So that's the problem. And if you're showing that other children are treated this way, there is a chance that your child will be treated the same. Yeah, so it's like for me, it was very inspiring to see like this kind of parental activism in that form, which was like on the internet platform. They've never met in person, but they know
Yeah.
what they need and they know how to help. And
And they
apparently
know
it's
that it's
working.
important. Like they know that it's important, like because they're setting a precedent, right? So they know it's
Yeah.
important that, like, if one child gets it, or if one of them is recognized as having a disability, that it's more likely for more and more and more other people to get recognized, which is great. I mean, are really building like a network online.
Yes, that's exactly what that is. So I know that in case of PKU, it works pretty much the same. So they are just those parents are fighting for their children to be recognized as disabled, which may sound, strange. You
Yeah.
don't want your child to be seen as disabled, but in that case, it's, for their own benefit. Um, so that's, it was when I was doing my research, it was kind of a tough question because you're asking those parents, like, is your child disabled? How do you think? And they were like, in some instances, yes,
Yeah.
but generally not.
Yeah, and I think that's true. Like, it's not, I think that idea of like disability is true for lots of different groups, right? It's not just like people with like rare disorders. Like, the problem with the state, right, is they require disability to look and act one way, right?
Sure.
When in fact, like, we know that disability comes and goes, that disability is not always around us. Like, as disabled people, we don't experience it all the time the same way. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting how like the threshold you have to pass in order to get support is sometimes too high, right? And what your research I feel like is demonstrating is like um that the definition of disability actually might need to be consulted, right? Like actually
Yeah.
reconsidered, maybe, that it's too stringent.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. I mean, it's very contextual because if you look at the situation of those families, for example, when they are at home with their families, even having dinner, which is like a very, specific time, let's say,
yeah,
um, they are not disabled, They do not have any kind of disability. But when it comes to, let's say, education or the welfare, they are very much, you know, in disadvantage.
right.
Yeah. So I think that it shows that the current understanding, let's say legal understanding of disability, is very
Yeah,
disappointing.
yeah. So I want to know, like, what kind of theory or what kind of approach are you taking besides disability studies? Like, are you reading anyone that is helping you with your analysis?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. The answer to that is I'm not following any particular theory
Okay.
only. Uh, because what I've done is I let those families like show me whatever they feel is important in their experience. So I've been
Right.
just following this experience, and whatever showed up showed up. So I will just, I let them do whatever they wish. To they introduce me to their lives. So aside of the disability studies, there are of course childhood studies, because most of the people that I've met with those disorders are children, and
Yeah.
most
So how
of
does that
the,
inform your
yeah,
work then?
yeah, so that's, you have, of course, a big question about the methodology. If you want to do research with children, how do you approach it? How do you, you know, make the children feel as, as a participant? Uh, what kind of other methods other than the interview you can use? So I decided that at that time, I didn't feel equipped. However, I never like in those situations of research in the interviews, which happened mostly at home. Children were always present, so if they wanted to add anything, they could. Like they were very much welcomed. I just didn't. Just didn't do my research only with children because of
Right.
the methodological issues that concern doing research with children.
Of
So
course.
I didn't do that. However, they were welcomed and they could, add whatever they wanted. I was speaking with them. I was playing with them. We had walks, we had like play dates and so on. Just we I mean, they were not the main.
Yeah, they weren't the main
Yeah.
participants.
Yeah, they weren't the main participants because I just didn't feel that I can do that at that time. Now I'm maybe a little bit more wise. Maybe now I could do that, but at the time, no. However, it's something that I might do at some point in the future because I find it really interesting and very exciting.
Yeah,
So maybe next
it's
time.
yeah, maybe for your postdoc, it's like the next step, right? You did the family, and now you can now do the specific individuals. I know you did once tell me that you did do participant observation for weeks
Yes.
um, with an
So it's
older person.
Yes. So I've with some of those families that I've met, I stayed for a few days, so even weeks, as you say, uh, because I wanted to see how they are experiencing the disease in everyday life. So you can imagine, like preparing meals is like everyday struggle.
Yeah,
um, and I also wanted to see the dynamics at the table. Um, so I was spending at least a few hours in each household. and in some cases even days, or in one case, as you say, a few weeks. So that was the person that you're talking about. I actually became friends with her, and she allowed me to spend 2 weeks with her. So we were living together, we were cooking together, and we were working together for those 2 weeks. So I could see uh, how it's, what does it take to, well, stay healthy and stay alive.
Yeah.
This
I mean,
disease.
really immersive, like methodologically, like really immersive
Yeah,
experience into, you know,
yeah,
someone's
yeah.
life. I'm sure you got lots of information from doing that.
Yes, yes. So we were, not only like living together, I was eating the same as she was, of
Wow.
course, because we were uh, cooking together. So
Mm,
I also, for those 2 weeks, I was also following her diet, which was very like high in calories and without any fats. So that was interesting.
was it hard? Was it hard changing your diet like that?
Um, Not really, not that much because on this diet you can eat rice and pasta and lean meat and let's say 0% fat yogurts and milk and so on. So you can make most of the things that you probably usually eat,
Right.
but just changing it slightly. The bigger problem was that, we were eating constantly, or at least drinking very sweet tea.
Right.
We
So
like to keep the
it's the
calories.
amount of food that was really difficult.
Yeah, yeah. So
Right.
that's when I understood because, I found out at some point that those people they do not really feel hunger because if
Mhm.
you have to eat constantly, you never really experience hunger. So that was really interesting because I didn't feel hungry for like 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah,
That
that was
that's
interesting.
so interesting.
Yeah.
So other I want to ask about like now I know you're writing your research now, so you're like coming up with like your analysis and your ideas. I'm wondering like is there any really interesting thing that you can share with us, like your results or outcomes, things that you think, are kind of really important that you learned about disability from doing this work?
Yeah, so I think what I found out for what was interesting to me was that there's a lot of disabilities that you cannot see. And that was something really interesting because I didn't only follow those patients, but I also, I was going to the conferences about rare disorders and so on, so on. So I've met a lot of people with other types of disorders, rare disorders.
Right.
Most of them, in most cases, you couldn't tell that there's anything different about them. You couldn't say that, they have some problems in their everyday life. They just looked like everyone else. So
Yeah.
that's really eye-opening for me. Because, the issue of disability was present in my life for many years because my sister has disability. And so that was so, obvious for me that there are some cases when it's just so obvious you can look and tell. And here, in that case, you just cannot. And there are estimates that there are like 2.5 million, 3 million people with rare disorders in Poland, which means there's a huge group of people with invisible disability in our country. Um, so that was something that I've learned during my
Yeah.
research.
Two
It was
two and a
very
half to three
eye-opening.
million people who may not be getting the support or help that they need
Yes.
because their disability isn't kind of recognized.
Yes, it's not
Wow.
recognized, and what's more important probably, it's not visible. So it's not
Yeah.
only a problem in, let's say, welfare system. It's also a problem in their everyday life because they are not, easily recognized as having a disability.
Right.
That's a huge group, and I didn't realize that before.
Well, your research sounds so exciting and so fascinating. I can't wait. I know it's going to be written up in Polish for most of it, but I'm
Yeah.
so glad that's, an English audience will get to hear about some of it through this podcast. And who knows, maybe you'll translate it someday um, into English or other languages so that, we in the I guess majority world can cite it and work with it. But I did want to move to segment number 2 now. I call segment number 2 in the middle, or the liminal. And I'd like to ask you, who is your current academic crush? Who are you reading, or who are you listening to or watching that you just absolutely are in love with?
That is a great question because I don't have, like, currently, I do not have any academic crush. Maybe you could tell that I have because my partner is an academic. Or maybe he is my crush.
Oh, I love that answer. That's so sweet.
Yeah, but you know what? I have really soft spot for something really, let's say, unusual.
Yeah.
I really love um, ethnographic work, Polish ethnographic work from before the Second World War, so from 1930s. I really, really do love it. I mean, it's piece of really great literature.
Right.
It's
So how
something
come?
very
Why do you
different
like it?
from, yeah. So there's a lot of, they were doing their studies about the folk culture in Poland in the 1930s, and
Yeah.
it's like a piece of really good literature. It's so
Mm.
easy to read, and it's also very poetic sometimes. And with all the methodological issues, I mean, it's really, really lovely just to read about the rural lives of Poles at the time.
That's so wonderful. Also, like before, things were changed forever in Poland.
Yes. Yes,
So
exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
We had such a rich folk culture before that.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I think that qualifies definitely as an academic crush.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I was not sure.
Who if you could give advice, you are currently still, a candidate, but you've been through quite a bit now, and I wondered if you had any advice for other students or young academics who may be listening and who wondered about, what um, if you had any kind of piece of wisdom you could give them.
Yeah. So I guess the main advice I could give them is follow your passion,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew since I was 12 years old that I want to be an ethnologist. And, I did that. And
Right.
even after you finish your studies, but you love what you're doing, you find a way to pursue it, one way or the other. But if you do love it, if you're good at it, and you probably are if you love it, then you should pursue it. And it will work out somehow in some way at some point. So just follow it.
That's great. That's great. Okay, we're on to segment 3. Segment 3 is called Outside the Project, the research, the work, the art. And I'd like to ask you about your most famous interaction. So, who's the most famous person you've met, and what was the story?
Okay, so that's a funny question because in my private life, my family works in show business here in
No
Poland.
way!
Yes, so I've met a lot of people in show business here, actors, musicians, and so on. But I don't think you know any of those people.
I
So
probably don't.
yeah, so but when I grew up, my father was working in theater, so I spent a lot of time in theater when I was a child, and I really love the smell of the stage in theater. It's lovely.
Oh.
Um, so I cannot really tell you, um, but I can tell you that I've met, you probably know, Thomas Chardash at the academic.
No, I don't know who that
He's
is.
very famous from his work about the embodiment
Mm-hmm.
uh, from the 1990s, and I've met him at the conference. And if you ask me about the situation, he was playing on a guitar and singing blues for us. He's such a great musician. He was singing songs, blues songs about the anthropology. Yeah,
Oh,
so that was the encounter.
that's so funny.
Yeah.
Um, that's so great. Okay. So, I want to know what obscure fact or idea do you carry around with you? Like, what is this piece of information? The thing that you pull up, at a social gathering when things are awkward.
Okay. That is a funny question. I was thinking about this, and maybe I would say, in case of disability, that people with Down syndrome usually have straight hair.
Oh, really?
Yes, they cannot, they very, very, very rarely have curly hair, even if they're like African American. Yeah, so
Um,
they have straight, thin hair.
and so I guess the context is that your sister has Down syndrome, and this is like
Yeah.
why you have this piece of information.
Yeah, exactly. And her hair is very straight.
Right. That
Yeah.
is an obscure fact. I did not know that.
You're welcome.
So besides reading 1930s Polish anthropology, what are you currently reading that you feel like other people should be reading?
Oh, I don't know if they should be reading, but in those hard times of quarantine, I really like some, literature that's easy to read. So I've been reading. Do you know the now it's the Netflix series, The Witcher? So
Yeah.
originally it was written by a Polish author. His name is Sapkowski, Andrzej Sapkowski. So I've been reading those books lately because it's like a
Are,
really good piece
are they any
of
good?
fantasy. Yeah, I like them. I like them. I never thought that I would like fantasy books, but I do.
Okay, I'm gonna have to pick those up then. I really like fantasies, so
Oh,
I'm
you
gonna
did
have to. I
like.
I didn't like the Netflix show. I have to admit. Not that this is a
Yes.
podcast about, critiquing Netflix shows, but I was not a fan of the Netflix show. So maybe the
Yeah, I
book will
was
be
either.
better.
Yeah, it's much much better than the Netflix series.
And do you have a current hobby besides, petting your cat, who's named the cat in Polish? What kind of hobbies are you enjoying, and how did you get started in them?
Okay, so mm, I'm really into the history of fashion. So I've
Ooh.
been reading a lot about the subject, and I'm also following like every single account about this on the Instagram. I've been following them like crazy. So I'm not really sure how it started. I think it has something to do with the theater, I guess. So yeah, I'm not only like I do not only like to read about it or following Instagram accounts, but also once a year we are organizing this huge 1920s party. So for 3 days we are dressing in the 1920s style. Um,
Cool.
yeah, so that's really great. And
That
I
sounds
and I
so much
can do
fun.
like vintage hairstyles, which is really hard to do, but I can.
That's so cool. That sounds like so much fun. So
It
why
is.
why 3 days? Do you guys like do other things besides just dress up?
Yeah, so we have on the first day there's like gangsters and flappers party. And then
Right.
on the next day, there's like a swimming pool from the 1920s or 30s in the next city. So we are going there in full like 1920s gear, swimsuits, and all of those things. And then we have like a huge ball. So
Wow,
that's
that's
my 3 days.
what a weekend. That sounds like a fun weekend.
It is. And a lot of champagne.
Of course, of course. So we'll end as we always do with me asking, and finally, how do you think disability can save the world?
Ooh, I think it's very important to have diversity in our society. It's something that makes uh, diversity is something that makes people more aware of others. And now, in times of epidemic and pandemic, I think we are looking at the vulnerables much more often because of the people with different types of pre-existing conditions and disabilities. Everything that we are doing, most of the things that we've been doing as the healthy part of the society, is to protect them. So in my opinion, not only it makes us aware of others, but also makes our world more diverse, which is a really important and beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Anna, it was absolutely wonderful to speak with you. I am so excited about your work. I'm disappointed that we had to end our time together in London
Yeah.
early, but hopefully we'll meet again. And I'm glad that we got to catch up again here today. So thank you so much for coming on.
So thank you for inviting me. It was lovely talking to you.
Thanks again to Anna Chowaniec for coming on the show today. Next week, we'll be joined by Danielle Landry from York University. Excited to have her on the show. This podcast is hosted, produced, and edited by me, Dr. Ph.D. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or would like to send me an email, you can do that now on the email connected to this podcast, which is disabilitysavetheworld@gmail.com. You can also check out my work if you're interested at phdshinoda.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Disability Saves the World.